today, we are talking about barbarians, everyone's favorite rage monsters. And we've got two very unique ones that make me excited about barbarians. They're way more fantastical, I would say. So let's go ahead and look at wild magic.
Yeah. So usually when one says wild magic, they're talking about a sorcerer. But here in Tasha's, previewed in Unearthed Arcana earlier this year, we now see the path of wild magic, a barbarian path that ties into the magic of the Feywild, the upper planes, and other realms of supernatural power. The class is justified as sort of as people of deep feeling, of powerful emotions. Barbarians are especially susceptible to the wild, chaotic energies of these planar forms of magic. And even spells out that often elves, tieflings, aasimar, and genasi are drawn to this path because they have this sort of otherworldly power that dwells within their soul already.
Right. And this is kind of, it's interesting because there might have been a few complaints about the wild magic sorcerer previously because it's very DM heavy in a way, having the DM be involved in that process.
Absolutely.
I loved wild magic from the Tome of Magic back in 2nd edition. I absolutely fell in love with all the spells and the school. So this is the most wild magic subclass, I would say. Right from the beginning, 3rd level, Path of the Wild, wild magic feature is magic awareness, which is quirky. This is a quirky barbarian. You have to understand. As an action, you can open your awareness to the presence of concentrated magic. Until the end of your next turn, you can know the location of any spell or magical item within 60 feet of you that isn't behind total cover. When you sense a spell, you learn which school of magic it belongs to. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. We'll see this over and over again. And you will regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This isn't quite Detect Magic. I like that they're not making you reference the spell Detect Magic.
Yeah, it's very similar to Detect Magic, but it's not quite.
Extremely similar, yes. But I like, especially if you're the type of character that just wants to play barbarians, by all means, do not make them look up Detect Magic necessarily, or be restricted by it. So I feel like this is nice and cleaner for this, and it's a good one.
I actually really like the differences between this feature and Detect Magic.
Delve into that.
Detect Magic is a spell that you concentrate on. It lasts for, I think it's about 10 minutes. And it's kind of this cone out in front of you. It's like magic vision, magic seeking heat vision, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a wizard, you flip your heat vision on, you look around and you scan for magic. But with a barbarian, it's like you send out a pulse and you detect all magical effects within 60 feet of you, as long as it's not blocked by anything. And just there's something about that slight difference in mechanics that really feels very flavorful to me. It's almost like an echolocation, a very sort of primal animalistic thing. The barbarian just like boom, and suddenly they know.
It feels like an extension of Danger Sense.
Right? It does a little bit.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a more improved Spidey sense. And since you yourself are radioactive, you can sense other things that are radioactive in a similar way. This is where we get to the really fun stuff. Yeah. Wild Surge. I love chaos in games. I adore them. One of my favorite things about wild magic in 2nd edition is I made the mistake of playing it in Ravenloft. We were being attacked by Strahd zombies. We rolled on a table, and I think we lost all our gear, including our clothes. And that didn't end well for us. So that kind of chaos in the game, I adore, I love. And we get that in a big way with the Wild Surge for the Barbarian. Break this down for us.
Yeah, so this Wild Surge, different from the Sorcerer's Wild Magic Surge, procs every time you enter a rage. So when that emotional outburst happens within you, so too does wild magic. And it's a D8 table that you roll upon. So you're going to become rather familiar with these effects if you're raging many times a day. There's a certain element of unpredictability, but you can plan around certain effects since you know what they all are. You're not casting a fireball on yourself, or maybe summoning flumps, or maybe turning green, or whatever. It's not totally like that. But let's just run through them really quick.
But at third level, you're basically getting through 8 spells.
Yeah.
in some way, right? When
Yeah.
you could like certainly not up to you spells or spell like effects, but it's really impressive. It's really great, and it's fairly simple. I think.
I'm going to try and run them down real quickly because there's quite a bit of text here. But one of them is a shadowy tendril lash that lashes creatures around you, and then you regain hit points after dealing necrotic damage to them. One is a Misty Step, effectively. It lets you teleport 30 feet, and you can keep doing that while you're raging. That's a pretty good one. One summons a flump or a pixie spirit within you, and then explodes, dealing damage to everyone around you, and you can keep summoning these exploding flumps.
This is the most bonkers one.
One infuses your magic, infuses your weapons with magic, casts light, deals extra damage, and it lets you return the weapon to you. You can throw it and then immediately right back into your hand, God of War style.
Yeah, that's great.
One is sort of a retributive magic, great for a barbarian who loves to take damage, right? Whenever a creature hits you, they take force damage in return.
Right.
It does not cost you a reaction like many other Hellish Rebuke style things, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's exactly.
There is a AC buff, and while your allies are nearby, they gain it as well, sort of a prismatic light effect that distracts enemies. Another summons flowers and vines around you, creating difficult terrain around you while you're raging. Very good for tanking barbarians, this one, actually, just because it makes you a lot stickier. It makes it harder for enemies to clear your area.
Yeah.
And get to that wizard in the back ranks. And then a beam of light bursts out of your chest.
It's my favorite.
Strikes a creature nearby, taking radiant damage and being blinded. And you can just keep doing that while you're raging.
That's just absurd. All of them are absurd, and these are remarkably improved over the Unearthed Arcana because you now get the choice of not causing your party to suffer, which was absent, I believe, in the UA. So you get to make the choice of what creatures around you are affected for a lot of these things. So.
Yeah, that's really good. And another thing that I really like about this is that it maintains the unpredictability of wild magic, while not just making it a thing that happens once, causes you some heartache, and then you forget about it. Most of these effects continue for the entire duration of your rage, which is very, very nice.
Yeah.
It kind of adds another temporary trick to your tool belt that you can use for the duration of that combat.
It's super fun. This may be the most fun barbarian in many ways of just pure chaos. And I can imagine, what you look like while you're raging kind of indicates what kind of magic is about to come out of you.
Yeah.
It is bonkers to be a barbarian running around with light shooting out your chest, or sprites just flying off of you and exploding at people.
I think if you really look at each one of the options in this table, you can tie the effect to one of the outer planes, which was kind of teased in the flavor text here, right?
Yeah.
The first one of the shadowy tendrils is a Shadowfell. The last one with the beam of light is like the celestial planes.
Yeah.
What about the flowers and vines is very Feywild. Yeah, so you can just think about how each one of the planes and their magic can influence your own wild magic.
Imagine a barbarian that maybe hung out with a horizon walker for a little too long. And kind of absorbed the radiation of all those worlds.
Todd loves that Horizon Walker Ranger.
I do love the Horizon Walker Ranger.
We'll have to talk about that someday.
It is one of my favorite of all time because anything can be done. Like I imagine that Horizon Walker bartering for someone's life on Mount Celestia. Just about anything is possible. But we're talking about this. Yes. Bolstering Magic. At 6th level, you can harness your wild magic to bolster yourself or a companion. As an action, you can touch one creature, which can be yourself, and confer one of the following benefits of your choice to that creature. For 10 minutes, I talk too fast. For 10 minutes, the creature can roll a 1d3.
The fabled D3.
The fabled D3. Whenever making an attack roll or an ability check, you can add that number to the 1d20 that you rolled. So that's nice. Or roll a D3. The creature regains one expended spell slot, the level of which equals the number that you rolled or lower. Once a creature receives this benefit, that creature cannot receive it again until a long rest. It's 1 to 3 is not overly powerful.
Hey, third level spell slot's another fireball, you know?
It is another fireball, yeah. So if you roll high, it's great. I like the fact that you can use this for skill checks now, because otherwise, not everyone's a spellcaster, and warlocks, are always upcasting, so they don't really have a choice. This is a bit cleaner in its utility. So
I'm interested to see how one would rule how this ability interacts with warlocks, actually. Because warlock spell slots are always at the same level. So, if you're a 10th level warlock whose spell slots are all 5th level, if you get this feature, is the spell slot effectively locked to 3rd level, or does it kind of scale up with you? I think that's a very interesting sort of. There's a lot of power that comes depending on how your DM rules on this feature.
I agree, because warlocks need that more, possibly. That could be a lifesaver for a warlock. So it is interesting that, like, you'd have to do a bit of math, but yeah, because warlocks normally don't.
That's a great question. If you're worried about this in your home game, if you've got a wild magic barbarian and a warlock in your party, which is a bit of an edge case, we gotta say that.
Right.
Go ahead and ask Jeremy Crawford. Message him on Twitter. Ask sage advice. How does Bolstering Magic interact with warlocks? Yeah,
that D3 to your attack roll or an ability check is great, and you can do this up to your proficiency bonus again. So
yeah, and it's not like Bless, where it only lasts for a minute, and that's like concentration. All that. This lasts for a pretty long time.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes is nothing.
It's not bad. Tell me about unstable backlash.
Yes, when you are imperiled during your rage, your magic within you can lash out. Immediately after you take damage or fail a saving throw while raging, you can use your reaction to roll on the wild magic table and immediately produce the effect roll. This effect replaces your current wild magic effect. This is a very interesting one, I think. It's very good if you get if you started your rage and got one of the effects that doesn't last. Like if you got the shadow tendrils and you just you burst your damage and you're like, I don't have anything else. Or if you get a result that you don't really like that much, then you're like, okay, well let's re-roll that. I didn't want the exploding flumps this time. Let's see if I can get the flowers and vines. Or even just if you really want that initial burst of power again, this is an extra little bit of oomph. Because if you say, you may have the magic infused weapons, but by changing this as a reaction, you can do that misty step if you roll it and then immediately get out of danger. It's a good one.
It's a good one. It shows the instability of this subclass, and the fact that don't shake the barbarian. It's radioactive. It's a bomb. Be wary. How would you rule when it says immediately after you take damage? Now, does that mean this barbarian can just like stab themselves and with a dagger and cause this to happen?
The rules is written, yes, you could do that. The way the feature is worded, though, when you're imperiled during your rage, I would imagine that this is sort of like an actual reaction to danger, not you just kind of putting yourself in your own danger.
Yeah, but certainly we have seen this though with like the Hulk in movies, dropping down from a helicopter to cause himself to turn into the Hulk. But yeah, I feel like it would be a little cheesy after a while if the barbarian kept on doing this themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. If you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, it reminds me of the Avatar State episode where this general puts the Avatar in all sorts of crazy dangers in an attempt to artificially induce his super powerful state. It's just like it doesn't work. He has to be in real, actual danger.
Yeah. I would rule that way too. Otherwise, it becomes kind of not it becomes the opposite of wild magic, really. So now we've got controlled surge. This is our last one at 14th level. Whenever you roll on the wild magic table, you can roll the die twice and choose one of the two effects to unleash. If you roll the same number on both die, you can ignore the number and choose any effect on the table.
I love that last sentence. That's very fun.
Yeah, that's very fun. You have a higher chance of getting what you want now. Because it becomes less wild and more situational. You can kind of choose what's the best thing to do right now. You've certainly learned to control your wild magic to a degree.
You lose a bit of the chaos here.
You do,
but I actually
lose the chaos.
I love the story here. It's like as someone grows more powerful and they gain more control over their magic, they can kind of bend the chaos to their will without losing that sort of free-flowing sense of unpredictability completely.
Yeah, which is and that's what I like about it, is you're still getting, because if you're playing this subclass, you like a bit of chaos in your D&D, or even more.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to lose that. So I think you're more effective now, but you still don't know what's going to happen. I love this barbarian. This is so fun and quirky. At sixth level, it's not the craziest thing to me, but it's still fun. But I really did. I think the thing that really shines again is this wild surge, and how it's just exotic and strange from plane to plane, and I love how weird it is.
Yeah.
Again, sprites are exploding. I'm terrified of any barbarian that has dark tendrils reaching out from it to suck life out of people and gain temporary hit points.
Yeah, that's pretty screwed up.
That's a big no for me. This barbarian in general I would have to argue there probably aren't a lot of them around. So if you're a combatant and you see this barbarian raging and pixies are flying at you and exploding, I'm probably going to get out of there.
There's something about D&D that makes me think about how classes interact in the world. How many champion fighters are there in any given campaign setting? How many Order of the Scribes wizards? And I actually really like the subclasses that are so rare there may only be a handful of them in the entire world, right? Because it gets the fantasy I grew up on was like Wizard of Oz fantasy, where everything is totally screwball, off the wall, new. Every single town you go to, there's some weird thing happening.
You're right. Yeah.
This town, the people are made out of buns now.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a good balance to be struck, I think, in D&D style fantasy between the sort of predictable alternate world fantasy and the completely out of left field fantasy too. They can intermingle, they can coexist, and this is a great example of how you can have that off the wall stuff in your game too.
Yeah, totally.
Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is available now on D&D Beyond. Purchase before January 5th to unlock the Cauldron dice set, as well as character sheet backdrops, themes and frames.